Everyday Life with Guardsmares, Chapter 3. It was the start of a new day, and Artemis Sparkshower was making the final preparations for her first shift of VIP duty. Time to make the final checks before taking up her post. Turning to the small mirror in the common room, Artemis gave herself one last look over. Armor, polished to a shine, and securely fitted without being uncomfortable. Helmets, also polished to a shine and securely attached. Crest brush, starched and firm. Hoof spats, presents, shiny, and well fitted. Wings, preened. Tail, brushed, and spear in hoof.
Everything's a go.
Heading down the servants' stairway from their shared quarters, Artemis quickly arrived at her destination. With a deep breath, she reached up with her free hoof before firmly rapping on the double doors to the Royal Engineer's chambers. "Come in." Artemis pushed open the doors and entered.
Specialist Sparkshower reporting for duty, sir.
She instinctively started to take in the details, even as she introduced herself. To her right, Anonymous was just getting up from where he was sitting at the dining table, wearing his suit pants and white shirt, with a napkin stuffed into his collar. In front of him was a plate with a half-eaten bagel. Beside it, a glass of water and a stack of papers. Glancing around, she found that the room was typical of the larger private chambers in the palace. In the right corner was the dining area, with a table for 6 and a china cabinet. Ahead of her, just inside the doors, was the living area, furnished with an elegant sofa, 3 sitting chairs, a coffee table, and a buffet server on each side, partitioning the area off. To the left was an office or working area containing a large bureau desk covered in papers and books, several wooden filing cabinets, a pair of glass-doored bookshelves full of books and scrolls, and a pair of smaller desks with writing chairs. "Oh, excellent. Welcome, Specialist," Anonymous greeted while placing a sheet of paper down onto the table. She bowed her head, still surveying the layout of the room. The left was all windows with heavy blue pattern curtains. French doors behind the bureau led out to a 20-foot deep paved patio that followed the contours of the building wall all the way around the corner and out of Artemis's sight. A short wall of decorated wooden partition pieces separated off what was obviously the sleeping area at the end of the room, while the door on the right led to the chamber's washroom. "So, do you normally stand outside, or...?" Artemis instantly recalled her very important pony bodyguard training.
Sir, typically the bodyguards are posted inside the doors to a VIP's chambers, but may be dismissed outside as needed, such as for privacy.
Anonymous seemed to accept this, and then sat back down. "I see. Well, by all means, take up your post in here. I'm just finishing breakfast." Nodding her head, she closed the door behind her and sat down in front of the entryway. Meanwhile, Anonymous picked up the sheet and continued to read it, munching on his bagel. Having taken in the general structure of the room, she started to examine the finer details. And what fine details they were. The classical luxury surrounding her was almost overwhelming. The carpet was a rich red with an elaborate floral pattern. The furniture was mahogany wood, upholstered in blue with white embroidered check. The tabletops were all marble. A stately lighthouse clock dominated the far side of the sitting area. A number of gas lamps were neatly arranged on side tables around the room, all with beautiful, bulbous glass shades. Oh, and the ceiling. An elaborate trim around the edges served as the frame for a wonderful floral plaster pattern. She could get lost in that ceiling. Still, it's all in keeping with the palace's general style. When she was accepted for VIP duty, Artemis was received in the Marshal's palace chambers, and they were similarly decorated. But that was just for a few minutes. She was going to be in this beautiful room for 8 full hours. Now, a guard didn't get to sit on anything, sure, but being in the presence of such opulence was exciting. And there were so many little details about everything to notice. Over in the dining area, the Royal Engineer stood up again, pulling his napkin off and placing it on the table, just before gathering up some of his papers. Without a second thought, he crossed the room to the office area and was just about to sit down at the great desk before looking up at Artemis. "I'm afraid your shift today will be a bit dull, Specialist. I'm gonna be working on this tree all day, and I'm not expecting any visitors." This too was covered by her training.
Not a problem, sir. It's all part of the job, and I did volunteer for this position.
Her charge seemed to accept this answer, and sat back down. He picked up one of his pen quills and was just about to dip it into the pot of ink when he paused and looked up at the Specialist again. "So, did anything in particular make you want to volunteer for this job?" Okay. Now she was getting a bit into uncharted territory. Training covered how to behave, but not how to answer personal questions. So, what would she say? Before she could figure out how to answer, Anonymous shook his head, dipping his pen into the inkwell. I apologize. That was a personal question, and I shouldn't oblige you to answer it. Please, forget I asked. Part of her was relieved, but another part of her was sort of wishing that he hadn't dropped it. After all, conversation would pass the time. But Artemis knew that it would be inappropriate to occupy her VIP's precious time. It was nice of him to be a gentle colt about it, though. Artemis straightened her posture and leaned her spear against her shoulder, adopting a pose that Pegasus knew that she could comfortably keep for hours. She was more than halfway through her shift. Since Anonymous had started working, the only noteworthy activity was one of the palace butlers, accompanied by a maid arriving to clear away his breakfast. Otherwise, it was just a royal engineer reading, writing, shuffling papers, flipping pages, and occasionally standing up to get another book or bundle of papers. Right then, her charge was standing and leaning over his desk, rearranging his documents. By his manner, Artemis could tell that he was looking for something. By the fact that he was scrambling over the same areas again and again, she could tell that he was getting frustrated at not finding it. Where in the devil did I put that book? Anonymous muttered, half under his breath. Instantly, Sparkshower recalled an hour ago when Anonymous had gotten up to pour himself a glass of water from a carafe in the sitting area. He had a book in his hands, and he'd put it down on the coffee table, amidst a stack of sealed scrolls. She then cleared her throat.
Was it possibly that book, sir?
Anonymous looked up, and Artemis pointed at the item in question. He strode over and picked it up, immediately flipping through it to a certain page. Satisfied, he looked up at her. How did you know this one was the one I was talking about?
It's the only book in the room that's not in a case or on your desk, sir.
He turned and then took the measure of the area, as if verifying the specialist's statement, then faced her again, clutching the book. Armored reconnaissance, wasn't it? Her lips curled up into a smile.
Yes, sir.
The Royal Engineer shook the book in acknowledgement. Sharp eyes. I thank Specialist Sparkshower. With that, he headed back over to his desk and continued to work. It was such a small thing, getting a compliment like that for so trivial a task. But inside, Artemis was swelling with pride. She volunteered for guard duty in order to get to know Canterlot society. She wanted a life in the Royal Guard, with an eye towards maybe even trying to become an officer one day. And that meant dealing with the upper crust. Even her commanding officer thought it was a good idea for her, though he expressed his regrets about missing the specialist's abilities while she was on this assignment. However, if she could still put her talents to good use, even if it was just to help her assigned VIP get their work done, that was all for the better. Even though it had only been 5 hours, Artemis felt like this posting was going to work out just fine. I personally love Artemis. Her happiness is infectious, and I love how she works. It's just full of joy. Because shit, dude, we need more joy up in this world. Now how about we hop on to our joyous donators. Top donators, Dash of Evergreen, Peter Coulthard, J Tin Man, Darkside, and Ponyman. CourierCruz CI, Delta Omega, Strix, RuneScythe 9852, Dospo, Rhyny Dragonwolf, Hunter Norman, Secret Moon, Tal Rasha, The Toilet Snake, Sword Brethren Mordred, Cerberus, Goulash Eating Hazar, Starlight Glimmer, Squiddy Boy, David E. Sanchez, Soul Dragon, Gaggy, Trey, Shadow Drake, Joe Piercy, Alex F., Rainbow Dash, Teal K. Anderson, TV Killer, John Becker, Leon Reynolds, Raven Speedster, Zach Krakow, and Mr. ECU.
Thank you all so much for helping me guard the Royal Engineer, and I'll see you on the next shift.
Also, live life to the fullest.